Okay, so we've been here for the last few days having a great conversation about new rural stories. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how we ended up here, I guess, at the Bombay Cottage Hospital?
Okay, well, I met Brennan because he was here a few times, and as soon as he came here, he immediately saw the potential in this place. So anyone that sees our potential is a friend. And he was organizing a conference somewhere else that fell through for various reasons, and he was so disappointed that I said, well, why don't you just do it here? And because we have a place that we can do whatever we like with this place. And so this has been a really good experience to actually show that we can do this and that it works. And we wanted to make it different.
A cottage conference.
A cottage conference. It's an old cottage hospital, so we have cottage physio, we have cottage concerts, we have cottage collaborative art festivals, cottage kitchens. So this is our first cottage conference that we've had. And it really evolved from what it was going to be a rural vitality forum or something like this. But what happened was in January when CBC came out and the Harris Centre with all this doom and gloom about rural Newfoundland, about, there's more people dying than being born and all this, we just we're sick of this. We have to try and tell the new rural story because the people that live here, it's not all doom and gloom.
No.
We're not dead and dying, we're not. We're the communities, and we're lucky in North Point, Rocky Harbour, with the park being here, we are maybe thriving more than some other communities. But if you talk to the people up and down the coast, which I do by providing therapy, they don't feel like they're dying. They may struggle, but they're not dying.
Do you want to talk about some of the stories that you heard over the last few days that were particularly inspiring for you? Is there anything that stands out in your mind?
I don't know if it's one particular story. It's more like I wish, this is all on the fly because I realized from this how much time goes into organizing a conference. I didn't even pull out the flip charts till 2 hours before it ended, and the flip charts were supposed to be there from the start to capture some of the ideas. But I wish there was some kind of mapping way that we could have, like the people going up and down the hallways, ways that we could have captured the corridor conversations. Because I'm going back and forth with the cart and bringing food and filling the coffee pot. The conversations that happened in the corridor, I'd walk by and they say, oh yeah, we're going to work together on this proposal. And you could see the connections being made. I would say, I know I myself made about 6 connections that will happen for things, to grow out of this through the Cottage Hospital. And I can think of 6 more off the top of my head. And those are the ones that I didn't see. So what about all the ones that I didn't see? What happened, so I would say there may be between 50 and 100 connections that were made here that people will follow up on. I don't know what the usual conference output is, but I think it's pretty
Well,
good.
that's amazing. More than a report, which is, often if you get that.
If they happen,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And hopefully that's at least some of them will, if even half of them happen, then we will have accomplished something, because that was the other theme, that we know that there's wicked questions, that there are some very challenging things, but there are some real answers out there.
Yes, we heard a number of ideas about those too. That was great.
Yeah.
And I think the Cottage Hospital, those kind of informal interactions you were talking about, it's really well suited for that, because it's a very comfortable space, and there's kitchens and places to hang out, and as you said, I think that really inspires those kind of conversations and connections that
I think
are so
the
important.
setting, it's been described as the biggest house in North Point, which I think it is, with kitchens everywhere and little nooks and crannies that you can go into. And so whether it was the corridor, or even today cleaning up, downstairs, we started downstairs stripping beds. We filled our arms with clothes. We stood down there for 5 minutes in the apartment talking. We moved out to the base of the stairs. We stopped there for 5 minutes talking. We got up to the laundry room. We were in there for 10 minutes. And so just the conversations that kept happening.
Yeah.
And with all the different spaces and rooms, just having kids around. And the little room, which was the birthing room next to the big conference room, was where the kids played and hung out. So kids running up and down the hall and
doing their own art.
Doing their own art, doing fitness, like they were in the fitness center. So all those elements really add. And then one of the things that we said, because we all know that most people hate conferences, but you go to make the connections with people. So we wanted to make sure there was lots of room and space for the connections to happen. So we decided to have these situation rooms, and I call it because CNN has situation rooms with Wolf Blitzer talking about U.S. politics, but it's a military term. The situation room is where you strategize. So
Which we were doing also.
right, and so we wanted to. Olivia had been our weaver in residence, so I thought, well, let's get Olivia back to do some weaving, and then she said, we're not only going to weave, we're going to make the rope. And so we put the weaving loom in the museum room, and the rope making happened in the dorm room across the hall.
Out of old sheets and rope they found on the beach.
Rope they found on the beach. And the idea was that, in the breaks or wherever there was a chance, people would go in those rooms and utilize them, and we were going to have flip chart paper up so we could have some of the wicked questions and people would write down the real answer. We missed that step of writing it down. But and it took a little while for people to catch on to going into those rooms and doing it. So when we do it next year, that introduction would be part of the tour and the introduction to the situation rooms, and we'd start that conversation right away as the pre-conference before the opening reception. And then we had day and a half, and I wondered, why did we finish around noon? Why did we only do the morning? Well, to give people time to travel. But the other thing that was good about that was that normally the program goes right to the end and you're squeezing it, and then everybody jumps in their car and goes. Finishing halfway through the day and then having lunch allowed people to stay after. Some people were still doing art, some people were still making rope. So it allowed people to leave slowly. And so there was
more conversations.
There was still more conversations, more connections being made, after that. So that's a nice thing that we'll continue to do. I think we could make better use of the situation rooms. We'll know for next year to just bring them in earlier on and encourage them. And,
So was the event everything you'd hoped for, with the exception of maybe certain specific things that you would have do differently next time? But overall, it
was more than I thought, because I'm also used to these kind of events where I'm doing it all, and this one was very, very participatory, and everybody kicking in and doing dishes and mopping floors and making beds and contributing, and whether they didn't want to speak out in the conference room, they had the hallway conversation, because not everybody wants that.
No.
And I think the other thing, even with some of the technical glitches, we started half an hour late yesterday morning, we started half an hour late this morning, and which was good because the rooms were buzzing with conversation before the conference. And what you think about when you go to the conference is people like it for the connections. So there was space and time for those connections to happen. And so I'm more than satisfied, because Brennan kept saying, what are we expecting? I said, I don't know. This is an experiment. We'll do it and see. And the feedback was very positive. What did you think?
Yes, I loved it. I thought it was, as you say, great connections, and the mix of people in the room was really key, I think, too, to the success of the event. And I know that you thought carefully, and Brennan and we all talked about who should be in the room. We didn't want a large group, but we wanted to make sure it was a diverse group of community leaders from different backgrounds, some academic and sort of support agencies, and I think that worked out really well. All ages, I would say, as well. And
actually, I would say a fairly young demographic.
Yes, comparatively with what you often see at some of these meetings, for certainly, yeah. So I thought it was great, and it was that mix of people and everything that everyone had something important to bring to the conversation and did share, and you don't often see that.
No, and even the graduate students, it was sort of afterwards that I got a chance to talk to them, and they would say, well, I was too intimidated to speak out. It's like, oh, you shouldn't be. But they are, but that's fair enough. But then one of them is staying after and helping me do laundry, so we're having big old chats, and I think I really like academics. Some of them can be too academic, but those aren't the ones that were here. It was the practical, and I really do see the value of that. And then for the grad students to be brought in on this level and really see how community and academics work together. Kelly, I mean, you are an amazing connector for that. Like your Grenville engagement to the nth degree.
Thank you.
It's through people like you and Ivan Emke that it really happens.
Well, it's really rewarding for the students, I know, and for the faculty as well. So we learn every time and make great new relationships, and seeing the impact on the students is wonderful for us as well. And trying to build meaningful relationships that we can all be happy with and all benefit from, and so I think, you know, that's what this is all about. And I've talked to a number of the students, and that's what they've said. Their eyes were really opened about the importance of community relationships, research that's community based and co-developed, and so there's a lot of learning that's happened over the last few days. So
Good.
thank you for that.
Yeah, and Myra said she wants to come back next year and she wants to make Mexican food. Maybe make moose tacos or something, and so I think we would involve the graduate students in the pre-conference day. So this is what we would do next year, is the pre-conference day would have more people come before the formal conference, so we would
Get to know each other before the
get to
event
know
even
each other,
starts.
set up the situation rooms, really develop them, maybe put more posters around. I would have liked to, I didn't even get a chance to read that poster that was up, and I would have loved to, but it only got up at the last minute.
Yeah.
So have the posters around first, have the flip charts, have people start that flip chart conversation first,
Yeah.
and then do some of the cooking. It was potluck, people brought them, but what if we were there the day before doing the cooking, right?
Yeah, you
So
can
that-
prepare some dishes and then cook them through the event.
That's right, and
Yeah.
share the recipes, right?
Yes, actually that came up. Barbara from Virgio is going to share her
Her scalded cake
recipe on our website. 'Cause-
Yeah.
And I think somebody said, "I loved your cake. I'd love to have the recipe." And she said, "Sure." And we said, "Can we put it on the website?" So we could ask people to share the recipes that
That's right.
they prepared.
Josh wanted my muffin recipe.
Okay, well, we
So-
should put some recipes
yeah.
on this one, but it's a great
Yeah,
idea.
that's a whole
Food was an
other
important
way.
part of the event. So.
And the preparing the food together, and again, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure how that would work, if people would feel put upon, but people really wanted to do that. They wanted to get in there and wash dishes and cook, and yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks
Okay.
again. It was a great few days. Looking forward to the next Cottage Conference.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for coming, and thanks for everything that you contributed. Yeah, all right.